Hey fam, Skye here from Goddess Business Unleashed. I'm bringing you another most amazing video. This one is on what, I have to look at it because braining, right? Like what subconscious identity is running your business? What subconscious identity is running your business, right? This is like, how is that as a sentence in itself? Hence why I had to just double check my little notes there for the title here. Juicy content coming your way. If this is the first time that you have hit my YouTube channel, please like, subscribe, comment below, whatever you'd like to do so that you can stay up to date with all of the videos that we're putting out at the moment, which is a lot. So again, lots of juicy content coming your way all the time. So what subconscious identity is running your business? I got that one out that time. So what do I mean by that, right? Like, you know, if you've been following me a while, you might hear me sometimes talk about that, that we have, you know, both our logical mind and we have our emotional mind, all right? And the funny thing is that it'd be really nice if our logical mind was running the show. But the thing is, the logical mind doesn't really run the show. The emotional mind is normally what runs the show. And this might show up for you, right? When and we're just sidestepping for a second here. This might show up for you in your life when it's like, you're like, I know something's going to be totally fine, but I'm fucking really nervous about it anyway. Or, because those feelings and those emotions are like, discounting the logic of what you know to be true. Or sometimes maybe it shows up in your relationships, right? Where again, you're like, what did you mean by that? And you probably know logically, maybe they didn't mean anything by whatever was said, right? But emotionally, you've been triggered in some way. And it's like, what did you mean by that? So again, you can see and sort of feel. And again, the logic mind, emotional mind may show up for you guys in different ways. Again, please comment below. I'd love to hear how your emotional mind is fucking running the show. God damn it. It'd be really good, as we said, if the logical mind does, but we are not Spock's, right, from Star Trek. Probably I'm the only nerd here, so anyway, we'll leave that reference there. So what else is actually running, your life, your show, maybe your business is in fact your subconscious mind as well, right? Which is really, really interesting. So we've got our logical mind, we've got our emotional mind, and our feelings and all those kinds of things. It's kind of like our croc brain. It's really like, evolutionary kind of stuff. And we also have our subconscious mind. And often what sits in our subconscious mind is the stuff in the shadows that we don't even realize is running the show, right? Thought processes, patterns, beliefs about ourselves, identities that we are carrying around. Alrighty. And so that's actually what we're here to talk about. It's like this whole other layer. Again, we've talked about logical mind, we've talked about emotional mind. Oh my God, now we're talking about subconscious mind. How is my subconscious mind, this back part? Look, I'm scratching mine now, my subconscious mind. It's all the way back here. How is it running the show without me even fucking knowing about it? And the thing is that, when we are a little bit aware that there is this kind of, these different layers of the mind, that the logical mind, it'd be really nice if it was running the show, but generally it's not. It's the emotional mind. We're running it, through trigger, through warning systems, fight and flight, through emotion, through, like want and desire, like all these different things kind of sitting there in emotional mind. But in the shadow self, right, like the subconscious mind, what is really going on? And there are different, almost like characters or identities that we could be playing. All right. Are you still with me? So let me give you some examples of identities that we could be, running in our subconscious mind. All right. Because the thing is, when we become aware of what might be running the show, or when we kind of feel into it, or when we kind of have a kind of moment, like you might have in a minute when I give you a couple of those identities and you'll be like, that feels really uncomfortable. It could be that one, right? That's probably the one that's running the show for you. So let me give you some examples. I have got a few written down here. The people pleaser or the good girl, right? So yeah, definitely, there are a lot of people pleasers and good girls out there for sure. I in my business mentoring, as part of my amazing programs, I'm always, working through, working with my clients, who are kind of, who have that air of people pleaser. That's probably a better way of putting it, who have that sort of hint of that identity that, they don't want to be too big or they don't want to step outside of the boundaries, or they don't want to, trigger other people, or maybe having the tough conversations, so they let their clients get away with quite a lot, or maybe their boundaries are sort of, quite loose. So again, you can hear in the people pleaser or in the good girl, like, oh, I'm going to be a good girl, or, don't want to do anything bad, better always be happy, we need to stay positive, look on the bright side, like all these different things. You can hear how that could actually subconsciously then be affecting, your business, let alone your life, right? Because if we are running the good girl or the people pleaser, then maybe we're not having the tough conversations. Maybe we are getting walked over by contractors or something like that. Maybe, we're letting our clients get away with us having no boundaries, or, paying late, or not putting them on direct debit, or not wanting to get people offside, or not wanting to raise your prices, or, right? If you're sitting there right now feeling a little bit triggered by this could be you. All right. So let's talk about a couple more. I'm the strong person, all right? Now, I definitely have some hints of that one, but I am well aware of that, that, sometimes I personally don't sit in maybe discomfort very well, right? But I am aware of this, because I do a lot of this kind of work to become more aware of what is sitting in my shadow side, to, unravel the onion and work through trigger, and work through, identity and beliefs and self, and anything that's holding us back and stifling us. But for me, right, I have had a life of, as we probably all have, right, a lot of shit has gone on in my existence, and that's cool. A lot of death, and a lot of heartache, and a lot of all these different things, right, which I've had to keep getting on with it, right, like, because it's like every time there's been a knock, it's like, okay, like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to sit here in the discomfort of grief, of upset, of shame, of guilt, or am I going to get the fuck on with it? Right? And so it's like a knee jerk for me, to get on with it. How can I fix this? What are the solutions? I have to make everything okay. That's another one. I wrote that down too, like you can hear the hints in that. Is, I have to make everything okay all the time. It's like, okay, this is not okay. What can I do? What is the solution? How can I get on with it? Let's be strong. Okay. Vulnerability. Crying doesn't do anything. That's been a massive one in my, shadow side. Crying doesn't do anything. That is literally a thought that sits there in my subconscious, and so, like, in the past, I wouldn't cry a lot, and it's not like I'm wandering around now crying a lot either, but it's like, having that thought run the show, right? That no, crying doesn't do anything. It's like, oh my gosh, like, is that true? Do I actually even believe that? Or is that just some weird programming or identity that I've picked up along the way, inserted into my subconscious? And so now, it's like, all right, well, better not cry. Got to get on with it. So hear how that one plays out. That's me. Oh my God, you guys, you know so much about me now, right? But it's true, And how that can, again, affect business and life is like, it's like hamster wheel, always pushing for the next thing, always making everything okay, can't sit in discomfort, need to have all the answers, got to have the solutions, all those different bits and pieces. I can obviously talk on this one for a while. It's, my life. But control, all right? So another identity that maybe you could be running is a control, I hate using this term, but control freak, right? Like, have to stay in control, need to know what everybody's doing at all hours of the day, at all the time, because feeling out of control, or it's almost like it's like we feel like as if it's giving our power away, but you have no power over anyone else. You have no power over their emotions, or how they might be triggered or not triggered, or how they're going to show up, or what they're doing through the day or through the night, or any of those sorts of things. But often, another identity that we could be running in our subconscious is the person who needs to have that control, and can get really, really overwhelmed, in business and or in life, right? Because everything is a mirror. So if it's happening in business, it's happening in life. It's happening in life, it's probably happening in business, right? So, needing to have control of everything. And so if something happens, the controller might not have the greatest adaptability, because it's like the wheels have fallen off the wagon. Like, what the fuck do we do now? Total overwhelm. And obviously, look, if you are somebody who does sit in an amount of control, look, I'm not mocking, for that reason. I'm exaggerating so that we can go, yeah, okay, that's probably me a little bit, right? Like, I'm the first one to poke fun at myself too, like, I have to have everything that's okay. Oh my God, solution. I literally had to train myself to stop trying trying to solution everything all the time, right? And I still, you know, the coach in me, the mentor is always like, how can we solve that? What can we do? You know, and like trust that I pick work, right? That literally like aligns with the patterns that I am running. So who's in control? Am I in control or is the pattern in control? Interesting, right? So the controller, you know, as an identity, like might, you know, maybe gets overwhelmed a little bit more, or, you know, as we said, you know, if the wheels fall off the wagon or something like that, you know, it's really tough, like to sort of like might get a bit scrambled, or, you know, lots of going on in the brain, or, you know, maybe stifled in inaction because, you know, no longer have control. So that could bring up a lot of frustration or anxiety. So again, that could be, how it's showing up for, you know, for yourself. So yeah, that's, you know, another identity. So who's running the show, right? And I have a couple of others. So I wanted to talk about the victim. All right, the victim, you know, and it's really interesting, you know, because other identities like could also be quite triggering for us. All right. And I have this example, my poor partner, right? Like I throw him under the bus all the time. Just to give examples of how this, you know, shows up in life, right? My partner had an amount of victim mentality, you know, to him. It was learnt, it was passed, you know, through generations, right? And so, you know, sometimes, and this is not entirely him, but, you know, it is interesting that, you know, wow, it's like opposites attract or something, right? Because again, you know, I'm the person who's like, need all the solutions, got, you know, like, let's keep moving. How do we make this okay? Let's go forward. And sometimes the victim can sit in something that's more like, you know, like it's another thing that's just happened, or it's everybody else's fault, or it's blame, or, you know, or stuckness, and all those different things. And I find like stuckness is really triggering for me. Because, you know, I'm like, no, there's solutions. There are solutions for everything. So how's that for an interplay, right? And, you know, and we're really lucky. Like, again, my partner also loves to do personal development. Bless him for that. And so, you know, we work through these things, and we both have understanding of these underlying subconscious identities that could be playing into scenarios within our life. And so we're always checking in with that, right? But it takes having that awareness, you know, to be able to have that interplay within, you know, within reality, within life. I feel like there was something else I was going to say there. Give me 1 second. Who knows? Probably gone. Let's go back to look the victim as a greater whole, as a person, and I'll give you the more extreme version. So that again, you know, you can feel into it and see if it, you know, if that's playing in under the surface for you. So the victim, you know, as an identity is a bit more like life is happening to me, another fucking thing that's, you know, whatever, like always maybe sitting in complaint, or like I sometimes say like loves to sit in problem, you know, not solution, or has a problem for every solution kind of thing. And again, it's not to say that you are a victim of some big thing, and it's not to say that you're not, right? Like in many ways, like we've all been victim to different things at different times. It's not that you have not been a victim of something. Victim identity is that, you know, we think life is happening to us all the time. Does that make sense? So it's like, this is happening to me, not for me, or like life is shit, or fuck the government, or just another thing, or, you know, sitting in problem, or there's some other negative fucking thing that's just occurred, or everything is everyone else's fault, or I have no control. It's like the opposite of control, right? Like I have no control in my life. You know, it's very disempowering because we're just giving away all the control and thinking that it's like, oh, you know, I can't do anything about this, or, you know, like, and that is more the victim, or can be the victim. And you can be like a wilted away sort of victim, I suppose, or maybe even like an aggressive victim where it's like, whatever, right? And, you know, in my partner's case, bless him, like he knows I throw him under the bus all the time, you know, but he was probably more like, like harder for him to see a positive which seems really weird because again, I'm a super positive human, right? And this is not all the time. It's not how we're running the show at every moment. It's just that sometimes when we're in trigger or when there is a subconscious pattern playing, it's almost like, and we can talk another day about something called emotional homes. So we each have an emotional home. So his emotional home would have been victim of some kind, right? So that every time something happened or he felt triggered or this or that, he was obviously the victim of it. Just that was his emotional home. That was the first place he'd go. For me, slightly different, to identity, again, is emotional home. My emotional home is frustration. Frustration, which is going to come out like as annoyance or as anger or something like that, because heaven forbid I be vulnerable, right? Like crime doesn't do anything. So I'm just going to get annoyed at it. Does that make sense? So we also have emotional homes. I'm really giving you a lot of information today, you guys. So have a think about what your emotional home might be, as well as are there any subconscious identities running in the background? Now I'm just going to give you, 2 quick ones more, all right? So another one could be, another subconscious identity. To be honest with you, this is a pretty conscious one I find in a lot of women is, I'm just a mum. I'm just a mum and, I've got to be a martyr and I'm not allowed to have a life anymore and I no longer have an identity and, I've just got to do everything for my kids and I feel bad that I'm going to put them in daycare for 2 days a week so that I can work to make money or I can't even just go train at the gym or, all these different things. It's like, is the subconscious, mum and mum guilt and whatever, is that what's running the show and running your business? How is that showing up in your life? Right? And what is that holding you back from and stifling you from? And as well on that one, may I say one more thing, is that aren't you being the best example you can possibly be by showing your children that you having a life actually matters too? And because if we are sitting in, guilt and mummy guilt, and look, I am not a parent, so I know that this is coming from this other side of things, but I'm just, throwing some thoughts out there. You can feel into what lands for you and you can put down anything that doesn't, all right? It's totally okay. But what I want to just put there so that you can see where it lands is that, and again, when I worked in gyms, this came up a lot because, we'd have mums come in and they'd be, working out for that hour and they would be feeling terrible because they're like, oh my gosh, and the, child's in the crèche and I'm here looking after myself. And it's like, oh my God, that's the best example that you can be giving, that your child, that it is not selfish to look after oneself, that you cannot give from an empty cup, and that life force energy and frequency and vibe and the way in which we are showing up in life, radiant and lit up is the most important fucking lesson that we could be teaching children. So if we are sitting, and can I say one more sentence? This could be a little triggering, right? Whatever we focus on grows. So if we are sitting in shame and guilt, because we are running a subconscious, just a mum kind of identity, right? Then what we focus on grows. So it's like guilt and shame and all those things grow. And then is that what we're showing the children? That we should feel guilty for looking after ourselves? That shame should be in our frequency and realm? Oh my gosh, no way. Shame is the lowest of all emotional frequencies. We don't want to hang out there. And that doesn't mean that on the odd occasion we haven't had shame in our lives. We all have, right? But we need to bring healing to that. And so again, if you're sitting in that, that space, that identity, whether it's subconscious or often I know that it is a little bit conscious to a lot of mums. They know that they, that they are having that guilt or that shame or not being allowed to let go. It takes a village, right? I know you guys know that. Again, I'm not a mum, but I know it takes a village. So hand the reins over a little bit. Get the help that you need. Look after yourself with your own life force energy first. And that is the best example you can be giving for your, giving to your children. Martyrdom is not a good example, right? That you have to give away everything that makes you you. No way to that, right? You're allowed to have hobbies. You're allowed to be lit up. You're allowed to be radiant. You're allowed to have joy. And I understand that your children bring you those things as well. But you are not just a mom. You are a fuck yes universal being. Alrighty? So look, and the last one that I want to say to you in terms of an identity is I don't know. All right? You can also be like, I don't know what subconscious identity is running the show. I don't know what subconscious identity is running the show. Like, I don't know that. I don't think it's control. I don't think I'm a people pleaser. Like, is it as strong as a victim? Or maybe there are little hints of this, or it feels like you will know, if it's resonating, or if maybe there's something isn't resonating or like landing with you, right? So just feel into that, because again, you don't have to have all the answers now. Like, I have to say that out loud for myself, right? I don't have to have all the answers now, but it's true. You don't have to have all the answers now. So if that is the case, you don't have to have all the answers now, and maybe you don't know, right, what your subconscious identity, is running the show or running your business. Look, that is legitimate as well, because remember, this stuff sits in our shadow side. All right. So it's the things that we're maybe not realizing or recognizing are coming up for us. All righty. So look, that is my video today. All right. Actually I'm going to add one more thing, to obviously, working out what your identity is. It's really interesting that what we can then do about it once we have some understanding of maybe what subconscious identity is running our business and our life. We go, oh my gosh, I am playing the victim, or oh my God, like I am, holding all this stuff around, being a mom, or maybe I am the people pleaser and so I'm always trying to keep everyone happy, or maybe I am just being, strong or controlling, or, trying to always be the solution person, make everything okay, right? When we have some understanding of what our what subconscious identity is running the show, all right, what's sitting in the shadow side, we then get a choice. And the choice and the invite that I have to you is radical discontinuity. And what would radical discontinuity look like? Well, I'm asking you, and actually inviting you that if you want to sort of start breaking down the barriers of patterns and identities that no longer serve you, to do something like let me say something else. To get to where you want to get to, you have to do something different than what you've always done. Does that make sense? So if you want to get somewhere else in existence, in life, in business, whatever that looks like to you, to get there, to be somewhere you have never been, you need to do something that you have never done before. So I'm asking you or inviting you to invite in radical discontinuity, and that means do the fucking opposite. And look, if you are, you're the just the mum person, right? And you're always sacrificing yourself and this and that. I'm not saying radical discontinuity is like, fuck your kids, they can just go live with someone else. Like, screw this, I'm just going to become a party animal now. It's not that, all right? But if you are so used to always being so self-sacrificing, or always being the people pleaser or the good girl, maybe it's time to get a little fucking wild. Right? Maybe if you always show up as the perfect, looking thing, do some no makeup selfies, or do like a side photo where you're squished down and there's a bit of your fat showing because you would never normally show that before, or whatever, is radical discontinuity. Do the opposite to what you would normally do. All right, because I promise you the magic always happens on the other side of our fear, or, and on the other side of having great understanding, and what's going on in our patterns, our paradigms, our subconscious, all of those bits and pieces. So your first step, as I said, is recognize what your, what subconscious identity is running your business or your life. And then also, what can you do even just for the next 7 days? Set yourself a challenge for the next 7 days. What's one thing you can do every single day that is, radical discontinuity, doing the opposite to what you've always done? All right, break the cycle, break the pattern, and invite something new and different into your life. Because as we said, you want to get to somewhere you haven't been, you need to do something different than what you've always done. All right, you guys, that's it from me today. Make sure, you go jump into our community group, which is called Goddess Business Unleashed. And we also have an amazing podcast of the same name. So Goddess Business Unleashed podcast. I'm super excited to see you there. Much love.